Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Safety for Biosimilars Strategic Pharmacovigilance Solutions. My name is Sonia Hunt, and it's my pleasure to be your X Talks moderator for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation also includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit questions and comments for our speakers throughout this presentation using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. Now, this chat box is located in the control panel, which is found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you require any assistance, please contact me at any time by sending a message using this chat panel. I'd also like to welcome our attendees viewing this presentation from our LinkedIn Live event, and I encourage you to submit questions as well via the comments tab. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and made available for streaming to those who register on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank PrimeVigilance, who developed the content for this presentation. PrimeVigilance, an Ergomed Group company, was established in 2008 by Dr. Miroslav Reljenovic, together with co-founder Dr. Elliot Brown. PrimeVigilance offers holistic, top quality, cost-effective, end-to-end PV services and solutions from clinical development to post-marketing for pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and medical device companies. Their leaders have an unrivaled reputation in the sector with a network of SMEs across the world. These include former senior regulators and consultants with expansive industry experience. Now, it is now my pleasure to welcome our speakers to today's event. And with that, we'll put on our webcams. And I'd like to welcome Ivana Lisec. She's the Vice President. There she is. She's the Vice President, Project Management, Business Unit Leader, and EU QPPV with PrimeVigilance. Hello there, Ivana.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Ivana has 15 years of experience working in the PV strategy and operations. Through her exposure to operations, she has helped position companies for future growth and operational optimization, covering pre, peri, and post-approval settings. Ivana has established companies, complex PV systems that have had a proven track record of suitability, agility, and compliance. She also acts as EU QPPV, and she holds a master's degree in pharmacy. Now,
Thank you very much, Sonia.
You're welcome. Now I'd like to welcome our second speaker, and there she is already there, and she is Sara Lipovac. There she is. Okay.
Hi.
Sara Lipovac is the Senior Case Processing Manager at PrimeVigilance. Sara is an experienced pharmacovigilance professional with over 5 years of increasing responsibility in the ICSR management, operational leadership, and workflow oversight. She is skilled in leading company-wide implementation of proprietary case intake and management tools and contributing to the development of AI-driven intake capabilities and automation. She has demonstrated the ability to lead large teams, manage complex workflows, support regulatory inspections, and represent the organization in client engagements. Now, with the introductions out of the way, we have our first poll question before I pass it over to our first speaker, Ivana. So let me launch that poll question now so our audience can engage in it with it. And there we go. So this is done in real time. So your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated. And I'll leave it open for 45 seconds to get everybody involved, okay? So the question is, in which areas of your PV practice are you currently using automated or AI-supported tools implemented in the last 2 years? So we have a couple of options you can choose from below. Is it case intake and literature screening, case processing and reconciliation, or benefit risk and medical writing, regulatory intelligence, or none? So please go ahead right now and cast your vote, and then I will close the polls, share the results, and then get right into this great discussion and presentation. Okay, Ivana, that looks like we have Half of our audience have voted, so thank you very much for those who have voted. If I can just encourage everyone else now to just cast your vote, and then I will close the polls. Thank you so much. Okay, that looks like it's the majority of our audience. Leaving it open for a few more seconds as I see a couple more people trying to jump in here. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in our poll question. I'm now going to close the polls. Okay, let's take a look at the results. So in our audience, 33% said case intake and literature screening, while 5% chose case processing and reconciliation, 14% for benefit risk and medical writing, then another 14% for regulatory intelligence, and then 48% of our audience said none. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating in that poll question. Ivana, I know you're excited to get started, but I just want to know your thoughts on the results of that poll question before we begin.
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you for everybody that voted. Honestly, I didn't expect this high percentage under none, but actually it makes me very excited because today we will touch some bases in the different areas, and it looks that there is room for improvement. Their case intake and literature screening results are kind of what I expected, and the rest is in line with what we are going to discuss today. Sara, what do you think?
Oh, Sara, your mic.
I was muted. Yeah, I said I agree, and I can't wait for us to dive in.
Okay, now we will begin. Thank you, Ivana. It's over to you.
Thank you very much. And dear Sonia, many thanks for your kind introduction. I'm really excited to be here today and that we actually got an opportunity to share our insights and experience with all of you about our strategic PV solutions for biosimilar portfolio. I really hope that you will find this webinar informative and that we will potentially open discussions to maybe support more specific topics for the future ones, because I believe there are a lot of them as well. What we are going to cover today. Successful biosimilar lifecycle management requires actually deep understanding to start with of both reference product for the biosimilar of interest and evolving regulatory frameworks that govern their approval. We are going to examine some critical aspects of bringing biosimilars to market, ensuring their ongoing safety and efficacy. We will start discussions with some challenges of biosimilar safety management when creating strategies tailored to these complex molecules. We will explore some best practices for building educational frameworks to support clinician, provider, and patient adoption of biosimilar therapies. And very importantly, connected to our poll question is we will talk about how we leverage advanced technologies and automation, and how can we make them great tools to streamline safety surveillance. We will close our presentation with touch upon the evolving regulations for biosimilar approval and pharmacovigilance. If you can move to the next slide, of course, let's start from the background. Biosimilar market is experiencing really unprecedented growth. Some estimation says that by 2030, the global biosimilar market is expected to be more than 66 billion. Pace of approval has also accelerated, and to give you some numbers, as of September this year, US FDA has approved total of 73 biosimilars, while in Europe only this year, EMA has already recommended 28 biosimilars for approval. To provide maybe a bit more context, biosimilars were first introduced to the market in Europe in 2006, where well-established regulatory framework, including some proactive government policies, such as including physician incentives, prescribing quotas, they fostered actually a mature market with high biosimilar penetration that led consequently to saving costs. In US, situation was or is a bit different. First biosimilar was not approved until 2016, and uptake has been slower. There are several reasons why this is the case. They have more complex and fragmented healthcare system. Patent litigation can be very burdensome, rebate systems in place that can actually de-incentivize the use of lower cost biosimilars. However, on a positive note, the US market is gaining momentum as more biosimilars, including one with interchangeable designation, become available. Situation in the rest of the world is diverse. In Asia Pacific region, particularly China, India, and South Korea, I would say that they are fastest growing markets, and they have specificity that there is a strong government support, and they have a really extremely growing number of domestic developers and manufacturers. In Latin America, for example, countries are also showing considerable growth, and this is obviously driven by the need of having more affordable medicines out there. Nevertheless, regulatory and educational hurdles remain, and I will give you a bit more details about that later. Overall, while Europe's head start has positioned it as a dominant market, the increasing global demand for cost-effective treatments in this case is actually fueling biosimilar adoption worldwide. There are several, again, reasons for this. The first one, most obvious one, is patent expirations of blockbuster biologics such as Stelara, Enbrel, Humira. Governments and government initiatives also play a big role here. For example, in US, Inflation Reduction Act has empowered government to directly negotiate pricing with manufacturers. Of course, biosimilars offer cost advantages over brand name biologics, but they may meet with the clinician or patient hesitancy. Nevertheless, luckily, biosimilar acceptance has been increasing, again, due to better familiarity with the product. We have more and more evidence of safety and efficacy, and there is increasing number of biosimilars on the market. And biosimilar adoption in general, it's not confined only to developed economies. Emerging markets are also increasing and embracing these alternative therapies, specifically more in managing maybe chronic diseases. And this is actually great to see, but this geographical expansion add complexity to the pharmacovigilance requirements. And when we want to have a compliant global PV system for biosimilar, it can be sometimes tricky because the different regions have varying regulatory expectations and sometimes even reporting requirements. If we can move to the next slide, while we are around regulatory requirements, let's talk a bit about the regulatory pathway for biosimilars. Both FDA and EMA created abbreviated pathways for biosimilars, and foundation of this approach is the concept of totality of evidence. Totality of evidence is based on analytical similarity, non-clinical studies to assess toxicity, and confirmatory clinical studies to assess PK, PD, and often immunogenicity and efficacy in humans. The biggest burden of this proof is, of course, in this analytical phase. And if we can demonstrate that our biosimilar is really highly similar in molecular structure and function to the reference product, the need for extensive human clinical trial is then reduced. In addition to that, a regulatory pathway for biosimilar also allows for extrapolation, where approval in one indication can be extended to the others. This, of course, saves time, saves cost, but it creates, again, an interesting scenario and placing increased emphasis on PV and post-market surveillance. This all leads me to the next slides, where I'm going to give you some insight why biosimilar requires specialized PV approaches. obviously, it's critical to keep in mind that biosimilars are large, complex proteins, and they are produced in living cells. Why I'm saying this? This means that they can never be exact copies of their reference product. Even product itself varies from batch to batch due to this inherent nature of biological production. And due to this variability, PV systems for biosimilars need to be as robust as those required for originator biologics. From a regulatory perspective, if you look at it, each biosimilar must undergo tailored studies to verify its quality, safety, and efficacy, and those studies need to be independent of its reference product. In 2005, the EMA established its framework for biosimilars. FDA followed 3 years later, and these regulations as well continue to evolve. There was a recent development, or relatively recent development, including a joint statement from EMA and head of medicines agencies. I think the right name is Statement on the Scientific Rationale Supporting Interchangeability in Biosimilars in EU. I hope I spelled it out correctly. And this is joint statement that says that demonstrated biosimilar approved in EU are interchangeable with the reference medicines. When we look at it from an operational perspective, effective PV demands really meticulous coordination between safety and quality functions. Not only quality function, I would add medical information and regulatory affairs, but I would highlight here strong connection between safety and quality departments. When a product quality complaint is received, of course, it's necessary always to determine whether it's a safety issue, whether it's quality issue, whether it's both. And in addition, which is very important for biologic, including biosimilar portfolio, traceability requirements for biosimilars are very stringent. So there must be a robust system in place for tracking products down to the specific lot numbers. And we see it in practice that it can be very challenging for clients, especially for the products that are self-administered by the patients at home, such they use, for example, pens to administer biosimilars. Having, again, said all of this, on the next slide, I'll try to highlight like 4 areas that we consider critical PV challenges that relate to biosimilar PV systems. First one, obvious one for this type of products, immunogenicity monitoring. Potential for a complex protein to induce an immune response cannot be fully characterized during trials, where patient numbers, duration of exposures, they're both limited, and sometimes manifestation of these immune reaction can be delayed and making it difficult to assess causality. And there is always necessity to implement long-term systemic monitoring. Second is indication extrapolation creates really interesting PV scenarios. Often these biosimilars receive approval for indication based on extrapolation from limited clinical data to start with. For instance, biosimilar might have been studies in rheumatoid arthritis, but receive approval for all indication of the reference product. And it can be, for example, inflammatory bowel disease or psoriasis. And in this scenario, biosimilar companies are actually required to collect data for uses that were not directly studied in clinical trials. And this really is underscoring the importance of a well-structured PV program. Third challenge is interchangeability remains a significant challenge. Even when regulators and authorities confirm interchangeability, clinicians and patients often remain hesitant about switching, which is kind of understandable. And this hesitancy impacts reporting patterns and really requires education of all stakeholders to overcome. Also, Regulations around interchangeability is evolving. I did mention the joint statement between EMA and heads of medicines agency. Situation in US, they issued the draft guidance last year in June. They proposed actually removing the requirement for switching studies that were a requirement in the consideration for demonstrating interchangeability that they issued in 2019, I believe. And actually, the goal is to remove these switching studies and rely on comprehensive assessment of existing analytical data and clinical data where we can demonstrate that biosimilar is interchangeable with the reference biologic drug. Finally, and to me most interesting challenge is benefit risk assessment for biosimilar, whether it's part of the signal detection process, whether it's part of the benefit risk analysis when we work on DSUR, PSUR, RMP, any aggregate report, or whether we are requested by the regulators to perform specific analysis for some inquiries. We need to bear in mind that these are more complex than, for example, generics, and it's really essential to consider not just safety profile of biosimilar itself, but also comparative data from the reference product and other biosimilars of the same reference. And this requires both sophisticated analytical capabilities and deep understanding of the actually entire product class. This adds a complexity in this area of PV systems or activities for biosimilars. If we can move, Sonia, to the next slide. What we did and how we approached management of PV systems for biosimilars and how we are building strategic PV framework. Over the last plus 15 years, we have been supporting biosimilar companies where we refined strategic framework that systematically addresses these challenges. And it's always a flexible system. Depending on the emerging data, you always need to improve your existing processes and methodologies. Whenever possible, we feel that the cornerstone of our approach is actually establishing strong foundation prior product approval and launch. To give you an example, supporting companies with developing a robust risk management plan for biosimilars require really thorough understanding of both the characteristics of biosimilar and full safety profile of the reference product. These RMPs cannot be copy-pasted from the reference product, since it's not, biosimilar is not identical copy of the originator biologic. And this plan must reflect the specific manufacturing process, formulation differences, and distinct feature of the biosimilar. Once we get it approved and launched, focus needs to shift to operational excellence. In our experience, for example, centralized case intake is essential for maintaining consistency and quality when we are dealing with the multiple data sources. And this is really relevant for biosimilars where safety information is coming from various different sources, spontaneous patient support programs, different registries, market research initiative. There is a distribution chain also involved. And post-market optimization of PV also involves continuous refinement based on accumulated data. I already mentioned benefit risk analysis challenges and signal detection for biosimilars requires sophisticated methodology tailored to that specific biosimilar, because again, it's not only looking for signals from a single product, but it's also differentiating among signals that might be specific to the biosimilar versus those already known for the reference product. And perhaps most importantly, effective biosimilar PV involves breaking down silos between functional areas. I really need to highlight again that quality and safety teams must work seamlessly together. Medical information needs to be aligned. The regulatory affairs needs to support us, and we need to support them. And the entire supply chain must support traceability requirements, because it's a must for this portfolio. To expand a bit more specificities to more tailored documents, Sonia, if we can kindly move to the next slide. I just like to take a few minutes to talk about developing a risk management plan for biosimilar, which is must to meet the regulatory approval, and it's very specific, I would say. So RMP for biosimilar product must reflect the RMP of the reference product in terms of safety concerns, additional PV activities, and any additional risk minimization measures. However, it also must include any theoretical risks of biosimilar that are not covered by the reference product, and it cannot be completely replicated, which will show variability over time. And RMP should actually focus on heightening PV measures, characterization of immunogenicity risk, and implementation of special post-marketing surveillance to include long-term or rare events. To that end, plan must be customized to focus on PV measure designed to identify, evaluate, and mitigate the important identified risks, as well as important potential risks. And in addition, it should also describe potential safety issues associated with biosimilar that might be a result of difference in manufacturing process from the reference biologics. So we really need to be very, very careful how we develop RMP to cover all of these areas. We have to pay attention what needs to be done for the reference product, and in addition to this, any variability needs to be theoretically also assessed and very well described in this plan. Additional risk minimization measures are mandatory, and they do include establishment of usually patient registries for cohort event monitoring, evaluation of immunogenicity reports, control distribution lists, clinical education materials, patient alerts, alert cards to ensure and make patient aware of any potential adverse events that they might experience. If we can move to the next slide, thank you. I would like to touch bases on building trust through education. It's extremely important that we put effort in educating all stakeholders here, because this is a challenge that is often underestimated, of hesitancy of both providers and patients to adopt these therapies. As I said, even when the regulator reapproval and interchangeability designations are approved by regulators, adoption and actual real-life implementation remains a hurdle. Providers, as expected, may be skeptical, and patients, especially patients who have been stable on their reference biologic therapy, may be reluctant to change. They, I don't know, might worry that the new biosimilar will not work as well, or they will experience some new side effects, etc. And this is why we feel that strategic education is critical, and this is where we can help companies building strategies for the education. To overcome, I don't know how to say, the skepticism in this aspect, there is a need to develop comprehensive scientific evidence packages that include detailed similarity data, practical switching protocols based on the real-world evidence, guidance on an ongoing monitoring, and what is extremely important is to match communication I know it's obvious, but quite often we don't see it actually in practice. But peer-to-peer education is extremely important. If you want to educate physicians and clinicians, let's try to leverage good experience and successful experience of other physicians that have successfully managed biosimilar switches and share their experience with their colleagues. Of course, patient communication needs to be tailored, I don't know, less technical, more empathetic, and we need to develop materials in patient-friendly language that addresses their specific concerns. And here, what we see is really, really extremely helpful is having these patient support programs that are crucial for answering questions and providing patients reassurance during the transition period. FDA conducted a systemic review and meta-analysis from safety data where they looked at data from patients who either switched between the reference product and biosimilar or remained on one treatment. The objective of this analysis was to detect any significant differences in outcomes such as mortality, SAEs, or discontinuations due to adverse reactions, including immunogenic responses, of course. And actually, findings revealed no significant difference, which highlights the importance of PV data, not only for ensuring regulatory compliance, but also this data is bolstering educational initiatives to promote the safety and benefit of biosimilars. It's not really one-off effort, and it can be really time-consuming, but we believe it's worth it. Education really needs to be on an ongoing basis, and the educational materials or initiatives that we put in place need to also evolve depending on the feedback that we receive, any emerging data that we get, and any evolving concerns that might be seen. Goal and major goal is to shift the whole narrative to biosimilars as proven therapies that actually expand access to advanced treatment. And this is actually part of the presentation where I will give the floor to my colleague Sara, and I'll talk a bit more about the regulatory intelligence later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivana, and thank you all for joining the webinar today. I'm going to shift the attention now a little bit to technology. So technology can play a major role in streamlining pharmacovigilance, especially in high volume environments like those that we often see with biosimilars. And our in-house developed tool, so ASAP PV, which is short for Automated Smart Processing PV Platform, it was born out of necessity. So if I give you a little bit of background information about how it was developed and how it was created. A little bit over 5 years ago, we were working with a biosimilar client, and they were experiencing a rapid growth in case volumes. They were managing dozens and really dozens of mailboxes. They were struggling with Excel-based trackers. They were facing significant compliance risks. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on how that turned out in a little bit. What we did in order to address these challenges was that we built a solution. And our goal was to create a system that could bring order, traceability, and automation to a process that had become fragmented and heavily manual. So this effort led to what we now call ASAP PV, which is a comprehensive case intake and management platform, which was built for scalability and built for control. Now, how does ASAP PV work? Basically, ASAP PV consolidates all sources into a single traceable workflow. It provides full visibility across every single step. So every single step that we do in this system is logged in the audit trail. Another thing that we do is we automated the extraction of data from source documents and convert it into E2B R3 XML format. which means that we have enabled automation from case receipt through database entry. And all of this is done in a validated, audit-ready environment. But that's not all. What ASAP PV does is it addresses several critical pain points. First of all, it replaces the need for multiple Outlook mailboxes. It's a central intake solution. So here, we're mitigating the risk of missed cases. Second, it provides automated follow-up management as well. So this reduces the reliance on manual tracking, and of course, it improves compliance. Because within the system, we set up our follow-up attempts that need to be sent, and the system sends them for us. And third, we streamline the sending of any kind of notification out of the system. So acknowledgements of receipt, PQC reports, any assessment notifications. All of these are crucial when dealing with multiple partners and sources. With ASAP PV, we don't have that worry because we know the system will send everything out for us. And as a result, we have a system that delivers complete traceability, transparency, and efficiency across all intake activities. And one fun fact, across our client base, ASAP PV now processes over 130,000 sources annually and more than 22,000 automated follow-up attempts. So these improvements have translated directly into higher data quality and stronger compliance. While ASAP PV was originally developed in response to biosimilar specific challenges, it's now proving especially valuable for any product or portfolio with complex, high volume case intake. And now if we move on to the second slide. So now we're getting back into our story that I started talking about a little while ago of how our system was developed. I wanted to present you with a case study. So this case study represents one of our most significant biosimilar implementations and showcases both the challenges and the opportunities in managing large-scale biosimilar PV operations. So what happened? Our client was managing biosimilar products across 27 EU countries, and it was an incredibly complex source environment. They were receiving safety data from over 30 partners that were providing reports. They also had local safety officers, medical information services, licensing partners, distributors. So everything that Ivana already mentioned a couple of minutes ago. And each one of these ways of intake, each one of these sources had its own communication channel. And it was just often regular mailboxes. There was no standardized process for intake. There was no centralized oversight. The team was using multiple Excel spreadsheets to track these cases, but they were often out of sync with each other. Another risk was GDPR and compliance with GDPR regulations, because if you have data stored in various different locations, there's a risk related to data protection and privacy. However, with ASAP PV, everything is stored within the system. We make sure that everything is redacted and so on. And now if we move on to the next slide, I want to talk about our approach. So our approach began with a very detailed plan because we wanted to ensure that during the transition, no cases were lost. What we did with ASAP PV, as we were building it, designing it, customizing it, we were taking into account our standard operating procedures and the clients. So with ASAP PV, we do have a level of customization that we can do. We created also a semi-automated redaction tool that could handle various different source documents, various different formats, so that we could ensure that personal data was being properly redacted. And one of the most impactful changes was centralizing the intake team. Instead of having different people in different countries managing their own source documents, managing their own Excels, what we did was create a central team with a standardized process to manage not just intake, we also manage translations as well within the system. This was also another source of delays and quality issues. The other thing that we did was we created a very clear roles and responsibilities matrix so that everyone was aware what their task was. We created detailed operational guidelines and prepared comprehensive training programs. And what was the outcome of our approach? So the outcome was that ever since we implemented ASAP PV, the client achieved 100% of their KPIs. They have centralized visibility over source receipt across all countries, and we have improved reconciliation accuracy while reducing the manual effort by 80% and producing audit-ready documentation. And now I'd like to take a minute to go to the next slide and talk about what we're doing with ASAP PV now, because this whole story until now was how we managed the problem, how we developed it, and where are we today. So because ASAP PV is fully owned and developed by PrimeVigilance, we have the ability to continuously enhance it. We're not only maintaining it. Our main focus is on improving usability, improving performance and efficiency. The recent upgrades that we did to the system included a modernized dashboard. So that's a snip that you can see on your screens now. We created a modernized dashboard where we have faster navigation, clearer operational oversight for someone to come in and see what's going on. How many cases have we received? How many have been triaged, and so on. And additionally, we updated the reporting engine so it can provide deeper insights and created more flexible reports that can be downloaded from the system. We also continually refine the platform because we are supporting a wider range of clients, a wider range of workflows in real world scenarios. So we want to ensure that the tool remains intuitive, that it remains scalable and ready to adapt as needs evolve. So in short, ASAP PV isn't a static tool. It's a living platform that grows alongside our clients, alongside our users, and continues to drive smarter and more efficient operations every day. And with this, I'd like to pass it back over to Ivana to talk a little bit about regulatory intelligence.
Thank you so much, Sara. And this is one of the systems that when I'm going to talk about the quality, you will see how we embed our regulatory intelligence into our processes. So if we look at the bigger picture, regulatory compliance and inspection readiness are fundamental to any PV system, and including successful biosimilar PV. It is really critical to partner with a provider that can support regulatory excellence, inspection preparedness, and quality. At PrimeVigilance, we have a dedicated biosimilar business unit that is supported by SMEs in this area. And in general, we supported plus 250 successful regulatory inspections globally, many of them for biosimilars. And what we actually do on behalf of our clients, we support them with either hosting the inspection or helping them preparing responses or guiding them through inspection readiness training programs, etc. While companies actually have tendency to outsource regulatory intelligence that they use in their processes, daily work to satisfy the requirements. Back in the days, we actually decided to have our own dedicated regulatory intelligence capability in-house, which is something that I believe sets us apart. And what we actually are focusing on is for biosimilar business unit, we are focusing on gathering specific safety related and any other regulatory intelligence of impact for biosimilar specifically. Everything that we do actually we embed into our processes. Our approach is to have inspection readiness and be proactive. We use quality by design approach, where we are building compliance into every process from the start, whether it's operational process, whether it's a process around the technology that we implement, regardless either tools, operational processes, specific PV areas, MI as well as a service. This is what we do. In addition to that, I mentioned us supporting regular inspection readiness. What we do is we perform mock inspections. We perform gap assessments. It can be gap assessments to the certain procedures. It can be gap assessment to the full PV system. It can be gap assessment to the specific area of concerns of system. We develop procedures as well on behalf of our clients. We embed in every operational process continuous monitoring of compliance metrics. And if an inspection occurs, we can host, provide options of hosting and any type of support that companies will usually have in-house. Especially our quality teams also step in preparing, and SMEs as well, in preparing responses to the inspection reports and CAPAs. Looking into future on the next slide, it's obvious, and not that we expect it's going to happen. Biosimilar landscape will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, I would not say will likely emerge, but emerged already as a tool for transforming. For example, for me, interesting area and important one is signal detection, where they enable the identification of different safety patterns that might be missed by traditional methods. And for biosimilars specifically, this will be highly relevant, where there is a need to, for example, differentiate between product-specific signal and class effects. Real-world evidence is becoming increasingly important in biosimilar assessment, providing different insights into long-term safety and efficacy in diverse patient populations. What we also see is greater incorporation of patient-reported outcomes, and this can be impactful for biosimilars where clinicians and patients' experience and confidence can influence treatment success. At PrimeVigilance, we are preparing for future, and we are continuously investing in our technology platforms, such as the platform that Sara described. We are expanding our expertise, and we are really deepening our understanding of biosimilar specific requirements. So combination of more than 15 years of experience in managing biosimilar portfolio with cutting edge technology and actually global network of experts to provide comprehensive support throughout the client biosimilar life cycle. If we move to our last slide, I'd like to conclude and hope that we have demonstrated that the biosimilars require specialized PV approaches that really account for their specific characteristics, specific regulatory requirements, and really operational complexities that we described in this presentation. And Sara already mentioned, due to volume and complexity of biosimilar safety data, I mean, manual processes are they're just not sustainable anymore. And really, technology enablement is essential. So automated systems such as ASAP-PV will not only improve efficiency. Everybody is talking about improving efficiency, and this is also something that really needs to happen. But it also enhances quality and compliance, because we are really reducing, and evidence show it, human error and ensuring consistency. Consistency is extremely important in order to assess the data in the right way. Centralization, standardization, harmonization, they're all powerful tools for managing complex multi-source environments. And really, what I tried to highlight in slide at the beginning, cross-functional integration is really critical. We, as a provider, we really need to operate as your own department and work with your departments in-house the same way as we are your in-house employees. And finally, choosing the right PV partner makes really a difference. I will conclude with this slide, and we got to the end of our presentation. And dear Sonia, I believe that we can kick off with the QA session.
Yes, we can. So I just want to say thank you very much, Ivana and Sarah, for that great presentation. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it and appreciated that. So now we're going to get into the Q&A portion of the webinar. So as a reminder to our audience, you still have the opportunity now to send in your questions using that questions window. And if you are attending this via the LinkedIn Live events, feel free to post your questions in the comments tab. So while you were speaking, I did receive a bunch of questions that came in. So let me start with this first one here. And this one looks like it's for you, Ivana. This audience member is asking, are you directly supporting, communicating with the departments other than safety and quality teams for biosimilar companies such as regulatory affairs? That's a great question. Ivana, what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. I might misled my in my presentation, the highlighting emphasis on working in silo with not in silo, together closely with the quality department. However, my short answer is yes. And companies that we support really, in my opinion, needs to have strong relationship not only with quality department, but with, as I shortly mentioned, the regulatory department, regulatory affairs, and medical information. And we actually had an example where one of biosimilar companies came to us and they requested assistance of our regulatory affairs team, because we do have a regulatory affairs team in-house, to help them navigate different expectation in among major authorities, and they had a few local agencies in case, and each of the local regulatory they where client intended to market their biosimilar, they had like a different or their own requirements for reference product sourcing, I believe, data bridging, and the post-approval commitment was in case. And we actually worked together, our regulatory affairs and safety team with the data analysis worked together with regulatory affairs teams with the clients in the clients, and they helped them align data strategy. And otherwise, if this was not done, they would do the rework, and any rework in regulatory affairs, PV really costs a lot. And what my message in general related to these questions, regulatory affairs, yes, quality teams, medical information, PV, really needs to work together. Reason being, because context is missed. Important contextual links between manufacturer variability, clinical safety, and regulatory commitments can be lost. And what is really important, and what we recommend our clients, because usually they come to us and outsource pharmacovigilance activities, medical information activities. Rarely we have it all. More and more we see it all. But the joint regulatory affairs, PV, QA, and MI boards where shared signal review calendars are discussed, harmonized variation planning to ensure that all aspects in case of similarity and safety are really presented coherently to the regulators. When I was looking at the data back then, and when I was preparing myself also for this webinar, I also dropped an eye on the reasons why some biosimilars were withdrawn, for example, and actually not having coherent data across different functions that went out to them also led to the poor quality of data provided to the regulators, where they withdraw or didn't approve biosimilar as per expectations of the companies back then. I hope I had short and long answer.
Thank you.
Provided, yeah.
I
can talk a lot.
No, thank you so much. Okay, let's go to our next question. I think we do have time for two more. This audience member is asking, do your clients need to make major process changes to use ASAP PV? And can it be scaled with over or ever changing company needs? Another great question. Your thoughts? Who would take this question?
I'll take that one. Thanks, Sonia. Thank you for the question. So any major process changes? No. So the way we've created ASAP PV to be extremely flexible and that it can adapt to your workflows. We do have a standard that we aim for. However, there is customization available in the system. So there is not a need for any major updates, right? We aim to keep the changes minimal. We work with you together to see what processes work, what don't, what can be automated. So it's a discussion where we decide together what is the best way forward. We present what we can do, and then we agree together on how we're going to move forward. And the second part of the question was scalability. Okay, so ASAP PV is built to scale with your organization, whether you're handling low volume or high volume. We've been using this system for more than 5 years, and there were no significant performance issues. Over time, we have performed enhancements, based on real world data. We've strengthened functionalities that already exist in the system. We've improved flexibility. And we are continually evolving the system so that it remains robust and it remains reliable as your needs grow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. I'm going to squeeze in one more question. This audience member is asking, what are your company's plans for AI usage? Hot topic. Great question.
Hot topic, yes. I was waiting for this one. No, it's a great question. Definitely a great question. And AI is definitely one of the most exciting and fast-moving areas right now. So here at PrimeVigilance, we're actively exploring how to leverage AI because we want to enhance our efficiency, our decision-making across operations. And this would include internal tools that would support teams with faster access to certain information, as well as initiatives in case processing, intake triage, and so on, signal detection, and many other analytical areas. However, one thing that I would like to point out is our focus will always remain on maintaining the highest standards of quality. And we're always going to keep humans firmly in the loop.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for that. Looks like we've come to the end of the Q&A portion of the webinar. If we couldn't attend to your questions, the team at PrimeVigilance will follow up with you. And there's a couple questions out there still, so rest assured they will follow up with you. Now, if you have any further questions, please direct them to the email address you see there on your screen, and also follow them on LinkedIn. So go ahead and utilize those links right there. Okay. Thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from X-Talks with access to the recorded archive of this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is appreciated as it will help us to improve on our further webinars. Additionally, I have shared a link to view the recording of today's event in the chat box, which you can also share with your colleagues once they register for the recording here as well. And I've also shared with you a link there that you will be able to visit this link and use it to see the navigating safety documentation for biosimilars. So all that is in the chat box there. Okay, so everyone, you should be able to utilize them. Now, please join us in thanking our speakers for their time here today. So thank you, Ivana and Sarah. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. It's really a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. We hope you found this webinar informative. It has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator. On behalf of the team here at X-Talks, we thank you for joining us. Until we see each other again, please take care and bye for now. I'm Sonia Hunt. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.